Hello, my name is Ishbin Brian, and if you're watching this video, it's because you want to learn how to bring a monster or 3D object into the real world. We're going to be using After Effects and the free software Blender to do this, but if you want, you can use Cinema 4D or any other 3D program that you would want. If you like what you see, please comment, like, subscribe. Remember to hit the little bell thing so I know to make more tutorials like this, and good luck. So the first thing you want to do is bring your footage into After Effects. In my case, I recorded this in downtown LA. I want to kind of put a creature in between the buildings or possibly over here. So here's my footage on the timeline. I'm going to go ahead and name that footage. All right, and then one of the most important parts is to make sure that your footage is trackable. If it's blurry, if it has a lot of motion blur, this is going to be a problem. So what we're going to do is go over to the right side under Effects and Presets. We're going to type in Tracker. So then we're going to grab our 3D camera tracker under Perspective here and drag and drop it right onto our footage. So this is going to analyze our footage and make sure that there are tracking points. If you look over on the left side under Effects Controls, if you don't see it, you can hit the little two arrows. You'll see under Effects Controls, you can kind of see how many frames have been analyzed. Yeah, before you do a lot of the 3D work, you're going to want to make sure that your footage is usable. Alright, so once the banner goes away, you can see all these little tracker points, and these are really good spots where we can kind of follow a point the whole time. So you can see like these windows stay in frame, which is really nice. If I wanted to change the size of them, I can go over to track point size, and then we can see it a little better. Our monster is going to be in between these two buildings, so I am going to take all of the track points here on this building, and it sets up a target for you. If you want to increase the size of the target to see it better, you go to this target size. I'm going to go ahead and right click it and create null and camera. So now it has created a null object and a 3D camera layer here, and then our footage is underneath it. So what I could do, just to make sure the trackers stay on, I can hit 3D camera tracker under the footage and just make sure these track points stay. As you can see, a banner pops up here because I've now crossed over the front of the frame with another object. It doesn't know where these tracker points are, but I'm going to try to be creative at the end and have a little swipe here to hide the monster at the end. We'll see what happens. Alright, so then if you have the Adobe Creative Cloud, you also have Mixamo. So this is a website you go to where you get free assets, free characters under the characters here. This is mixamo.com. I'll put it in the description below. And you can choose characters, and then you can choose animations for them. So I'm going to go ahead and get maybe like an alien type of creature for this one. Yeah, and these are all royalty free. You can use them for your projects. It's great. Otherwise, you can bring in your own models as long as they're T-posed, and you can throw these animations on them. Or if you have a pre-made animation, go ahead and use that. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and choose this alien guy here. And I found this animation under the Animations tab. You can just click one and test it out. So let's see. Stand. So I'll probably just have him stand from the floor nice and slow. So you can get right up. There we go. And then I can change his stance here. So some of the characters have different little levels you can change here. You know, overdrive can be lower to slow him down. Character arm space out wider, and 293 frames is good. All right. So once I'm done with him, I'm going to go ahead and hit download, and I'm going to change this to FBX binary with skin and download. Alright, so once you download the FBX, you want to save it in the folder you're going to be saving this project in, and go ahead and go to Blender. We're going to open it up. Blender is a free 3D software that can basically do anything in the 3D world, and it's super powerful. So we're going to hit General, and we're going to go ahead and just delete the cube. We're going to bring in our monster, so we're going to go to File, Import, FBX. And now I'm going to navigate to where I saved it. And here it is, the FBX. I'm going to import it. And now we can see this animation play through here. if your animation goes too long, go ahead and type in some more frames here so you can see the whole animation through. Great. So now what I'm going to do is make sure the skin looks good. Skin was applied by hitting the viewport shader, and you can see our alien is looking good. He's glowing, very nice. So now what I want to do is look at my footage again and see kind of the angle of which I am. I'm kind of looking up towards some buildings here. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of duplicate this camera angle in Blender. So this is the way to cheat a 3D object into live action footage. I'm gonna go ahead and click on the camera that's already in here. If you hit the little camera button here on the right, toggle the camera view, you can see what we're doing. I'm gonna hit this little tiny arrow to bring this open and go to view. And now if I wanna parent the camera to my cursor right now, so if I hit this, anywhere I go the camera just follows, so anything inside of this is what we're seeing. And it's gonna be pretty big here, right here. So I'm looking up towards my monster from like a lower angle here. Let's see if he just gets up. Yeah, there we go. He's gonna be really big in my frame, but see how I'm looking upwards towards him? Just like the footage right here, we're looking up towards him. All right, so that's the first step. Get our camera set. I'm gonna uncheck this camera to view because now we have our camera pretty much set, and it doesn't have to move or anything because we're gonna do some 3D tracking. I'm gonna look back at our footage. Where's the light coming from? If we look at it, it looks like the sun is coming from this direction, so I'm gonna kind of match this lighting in Blender. Shadows are coming from above here. Not sure if, yeah, sun must be back here a little bit higher up. So we're gonna do that in Blender. We're gonna go back into it. We're gonna go ahead and turn off our lights. Just deleted the one light that was in the collection. I'm gonna go to Shift A and go to light, opens up this menu, and then go to the sun and click on the sun. And then we can basically move our sun wherever we want. So I know the light is coming from over here, so I can just kind of move it around like so. And I think since it's a little bit behind him, it would be backlighting him a little bit. Let's see. He'd have a little shade on the front side of him, but the back would be lit. There we go. So now you can kind of see where the light is coming from. If I click on my world properties down over here on the right side of this little globe, we can change the world to completely dark, and then we can really see the light here. My sun's not too powerful, so if I go to object data properties, little light bulb, change the strength, because it is a really bright sunny day. It looks like there's a little too much shade on him, so I'll probably put another light in the front so he's not too dark. But let's look at the color temperature of the footage. It's pretty bright and it's a little warm, so we want to add a little bit of orange to the light itself. So the sun, you can change the color here. I don't want it to be green, but I want it to be a little bit orange in the back. Heat them up a little bit. Right there. And then I'm going to Shift A, add a little point light to the front of him, right over here, to keep him just a little bit brighter on the front side as well. And I can make that a little bit yellow. I don't want it to be too yellow. Well, I can color correct it later on in After Effects. So for the most part, we just want to see what parts of him we want visible, what parts we want a little stronger. So you can see behind him where the sun would be. If I zoom in, right over here, the sun's catching him from this side. All right, so what I'm going to do is export this as a PNG sequence. So I'm going to go ahead and click on these render properties here. I usually turn on bloom, helps with light reflection, and then we don't need depth of field because I shot that footage very flat. Motion blur might be good. It adds a little bit of more realism to this. And then if we go under film, we want to have a transparent background. Yeah, so make sure transparent is checked. So we're just taking our monster out of the scene and we're going to throw it in the other scene. Let's go ahead and export. We're going to go to the output properties. This is 1920 by 1080, but I think I'm going to export it 4K. And 4K is 3840 by 2160. Very cool. And I'm just going to do a PNG sequence in case it crashes. I can like pick up where I am and keep rendering after that. So let's make sure file format is PNG. You got your color as RGBA. You don't really need to mess with any of this stuff. But let's choose a location. I'm just going to save this in the same location where my FBX was. So this will be, I'm going to make a folder for it actually. I'll hit the little folder button and write alien PNGs. And I'm going to save all the images into here. So let's hit accept. And I think we're pretty good to go. Metadata looks fine. Post-processing looks fine, so you don't need to change any of that. And then we're just going to go to render animation, top left. All right, so once your scene is rendered out completely, I got 300 frames. You can click on the PNGs that you saved and kind of look through them. You can see that they're transparent right here. Very cool. So now we're going to go into After Effects with these PNGs. So you're going to go into After Effects, go ahead and go to Project, and we're going to File, Import Files. Then you're going to go navigate to those PNGs that you just saved. All right, so all you have to do is click on the first one and make sure your PNG sequence here is already selected. It should pre-select it. Then you hit Import, and you have a file here. So I can go ahead and drag and drop it into the frame. It's not the full frame of our video, but that's okay. And since I rendered in 4K, I want to make sure he can fit in our scene. I'm going to have him come behind this pole, so I'm going to have to mask that out later, but it'll make it even more realistic. And it's not really looking that great. It looks just like a 3D object is just standing there, standing up. So what we want to do is make sure this layer, this alien PNG, is actually a 3D object. So you want to go over here, make sure this little box under this cube here is selected, and that turns it into a 3D object, which should now manually track because we made that null object in camera. We don't even see it. There it is. There. Whoa. Okay, so it looks like he is too far in the foreground, so we can manually move him backwards, and that's what I got to do here. So on the Z-axis, you want to move it back. I can do that by hitting this little arrow on the PNG layer, go to transform, and then you can find the position on the Z, but I prefer to just drag it back using trial and error to see if it sticks anywhere. It's looking better. He's like a little mini guy, but it is sticking pretty well there actually. I'm pretty happy with that. So now I want to scale him up. So I'm going to hold down Shift while I am dragging this right corner. He's going to be rather large. And let's see. We drag through. Not bad, not bad. Anytime you want to reposition him, you want to go ahead and go up and down on the Y-axis or on the X-axis here. So we're going to get him to a right spot. And I think he is a little too high, so maybe we put him in here. So we actually want to make it look like a monster is standing up. Yeah, there we go. Couple things. He's behind this building. See how hot the light is here? We kind of match that with the lighting from Blender. He is crossing this foreground, so this is a case where if you want it to look more realistic, you can mask out this area if you want. So we're going to start off by masking him behind this building. All I'm going to do is grab the bottom footage layer, Control D to duplicate it, bring that footage up to the top, and he crosses over this area here. So all I'm going to do is zoom in here, and I'm going to make a mask. So top left, hit the pen tool, shortcut G. I'm going to go ahead and hit this mask like this. This is one way to do it. There are different ways you can mask it. I could just manually mask him, which could be beneficial, but let's try it this way first. And I want to make sure we're pretty close to the edge. I'm just setting keyframes of places where he crosses over this building. Potentially we're just cutting out this building and it's going to go on top of him, like it's another layer. Okay, that looks pretty good. So since that building's cut out, I'm just going to go to the right and finish the mask. Make sure you go back to the front point and connect it again. It doesn't look like he crosses this area, so we're pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and set a keyframe there on the mask. So if I go to my, it says footage 2, let's go ahead and rename that front building. In your case, you might not have a front building. I'm just showing you this because I gave myself the challenge here. I'm gonna hit the drop down, go to mask and mask 1, and set a keyframe, little stopwatch to set a mask point. So in this case, you could set your mask on the alien and just have the mask follow him here, but I'm gonna do it this tedious way to show you. So now I'm gonna go forward. We're just gonna mask out the same kind of thing. So I'm gonna grab my keyframes and I'm just gonna shift them as the camera moves. And if you have that stopwatch selected on the first one, it's gonna set another keyframe here. This is a case where the building is kind of gonna morph as we're moving, so I'm just gonna fine tune the mask as we go, kind of frame by frame. There we go. And make sure his body stays behind the building there. So it's, another method you could use is to track it and track the mask, but I prefer to make it as clean as possible by doing it manually. So this whole section here, you can see he kind of stays behind. So I'm gonna go backwards too. And this whole thing is shifting. So I'm just dragging, placing, adjusting the keyframes, dragging, placing, adjusting the keyframes. If you have footage where you're not moving too much, it makes this a lot easier. I'm challenging myself with some moving footage just to step up my game every time I make one of these. All right, I'm gonna fast forward through this process now, and you can kind of just see me work. Don't forget to save your project, everybody. All right, so now I got my building masked out, so he kind of goes behind it there. And then don't worry about that part yet. We're gonna swipe it away. But let's just go ahead and focus on this beginning part. I'm gonna have to do the same thing for this pole to make it a little more realistic, so I will mask that out, but I won't make you watch me do that. So we got our monster standing up. But it's not very realistic. There's no shadows, no nothing. There should be shadow appearing on this building here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take my monster footage again. I'm going to Control D. These are the PNGs. I'm going to be duplicating those, and what I'm going to do is a shadow would be reflected. So I'm going to rotate the little rotation tool on the Y-axis here. I'm going to be creating his shadow, and since that building is kind of sideways, I'm going to go ahead and rotate it kind of in the same angle as the building itself. Cool. I'm just going to go ahead and move it over on the x-axis here, and you can't really see anything, so I'll bring that PNG to the front, so you kind of see his reflection there, shadow. Shadow would be lower than him, of course, and it won't be on top of him. So I just brought it down. Shadow would start over here. Let's bring it over on the x-axis some more. So it just kind of hits that side of that building. You'll just see part of him. So it should look really weird right now. We just kind of see him and his doppelganger opposite of him right next to him. We're going to go ahead and bring down the opacity of that one. So go ahead and drop down. Let's name this file shadow 1 in my case. We're going to turn the opacity of that down. So hit the drop down arrows, go to transform and opacity down, so we can kind of see where we want that to be. I'm going to add a little bit of blur to it because the shadow wouldn't be that sharp. So if I go to effects and presets, type in blur, we are going to get a, I don't know how to say the word, Gaussian blur or Gaussian blur, and drag and drop that right on our shadow one. And under the effects controls in the top left, the Gaussian blur is available. We're going to add some blurriness to it. Drag the cursor over here. Not too blurry. Very nice. And then I'm going to change the color of it and everything. So effects and presets, top right, we're going to change that to Lumetri. Lumetri color. It's under color correction. You're going to drag and drop that on there. And we're going to go back over to the left side where we see Lumetri color. Go to basic correction and change our exposure all the way down. So it's kind of a shadow there. And now we can see if we add more blur, what it kind of does there. And then we can play around with different sections. And the shadow is only going to be appearing on our building again, so we do need to manually mask that shadow. If we really want this to look amazing, you're going to have to put in the masking work. So under Shadow 1, make sure you hit your pen tool and then start chipping away at that mask again. Since it's a shadow, it doesn't have to be too perfect. We're going to end up feathering this a little bit anyway, but go ahead and just trace that building once again. There are AI tools to help you with this. You could track your mask, but like I said, I find it therapeutic to do it the manual way and make sure everything looks good. So reconnect that. You can see now our shadow is just on this part of the building. I'm going to set a keyframe for that Shadow 1, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. Make sure you set a keyframe under your mask path with a little stopwatch. So you'll see your little keyframe here. And it's kind of not too bad. I might not need to adjust too much since it is a shadow. They kind of warp around a little bit anyway. So let's see here. If it goes up, our shadow kind of follows. So yeah, you can do some fine tuning of that. You can go back and you can change the opacity of that mask if you want to even bring it down a little more. Nice and subtle helps, but try to match kind of the light, like what the light would be doing here on like a shadow. Not too bad. So anywhere you want shadows to be, you're gonna have to do things like that. Boom. That's how you make a monster with a shadow. Of course, you can go more advanced and mask out this pole. You can put reflections in the windows. Maybe I export camera footage of the backside of him and put it in here. I'll try to do that for the final product, but I'm not going to make you watch. So as you can see, I put a little bit of work into the masking here while you were away. So I have this masked right here, and I am going to fine-tune the shadow later on before I export, but I wanted to make sure I show you how to color correct this before I move on. So we're going to go to our footage of our monster here, which is this one. I'm going to go ahead and change the color of it so you can see it a little bit better. I'm gonna go ahead and click my layer. I'm going to go to Edit, Label, and pick a color. I'll go with purple so you can see it. So that's our layer there. And I'm going to go ahead and go to Effects and Presets again and go to Lumetri Color and drag and drop that on. So now we can fine tune the color correction of our monster here. So we can change the temperature of him if it's like, you know, I can add some temperature if I want him to be a little bit warmer or colder. I can go to the left. I think it's going to be a little bit warm in this case because it's a hot sun. I could up the highlights to make him really bright here. I might just do it a little bit. Bring down the shadows if I want. That looks pretty good to me. So you can play around with the color correction like that to kind of match your scene a little bit more. I usually wait till the very end to do any type of color correction. But alright, so if I'm pretty content with the way it looks for now, I'm going to bring it into Premiere where I can color correct the whole footage and add fake camera shake if I'd like to. It helps make it feel a little more realistic, adding a little bit of the fake shake. So I'm going to export this file and then bring it into Premiere. Alright, so now that I have my footage within Premiere, this is where I can add my camera shake and color correct. So in my case, I found a free camera shake effect online. If you want me to do a tutorial on how to get it, just leave it in the comments below. But under my presets, I have some camera shakes from Deadpool, and I can play around with these and see which ones look a little more realistic. So this adds a little more realism to it. When you add camera shake, it kind of cuts off your frame, so I do need to reposition my footage a little bit, and that adds a little bit of that handheld feel to it. And boom, there we go. So now let's color correct our footage. What I'm going to do is go down here to new item, go to adjustment layer, hit OK. I'm just going to drag it on top of that footage, and I'm going to play around with color so that all of it looks great. What I typically do is use LUTs. So I'm going to, add a Lumetri color here, and then you can fine tune your colors in your effects controls here if you'd like. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw a LUT on here that I know is good, and then just bring down the opacity of it so it just adds a little bit of that color to it. Thanks for watching my video, everyone. If you like what you saw, please comment, like, subscribe, hit the little bell thing so I know to keep making videos like this, and good luck with bringing your 3D objects into the real world.